But I think the main things is at the end of the day, volleyball is volleyball. It's in the same 9x9 court, and the rules are the same. So we. Is that on the back of your shirt?
Yeah, it's on the back of the shirt.
Muted. A little free shout out for you. And it doesn't matter who's on the other side of the net. You need to still execute to the best of your ability if you want a chance to win.
That's right, Bert Walsh. And first and foremost, congratulations, Mr. Walsh, on taking home the Greek Cup this past weekend with PAOK beating Panathinaikos 3-1. So congratulations. That's a good precursor heading into the Canadian national team season. My name is Everett Delorme. I'm joined as always by Mr. Rob St. Clair from Chicago. And this is the last time you guys are going to see Rob St. Clair on this show as a single man. So if there's any ladies out there who want to put their bid in, do it right now. Do it in the chat because as of Friday, this man will be a married man. So before we get it started, no show next week because this man will be down in Curacao for his honeymoon. This is the 9x9, 81 square meters of the best volleyball content on the internet. And we're going to start it off with the Vero Volley Malonza Figured Out Award awarded to the FIVB for disbanding our Instagram page. That's right. If you want to look for our Instagram page on Instagram, it's nowhere to be found because it was taken down, DMCA'd by the wonderful FIVBs, the three boomers in the trench coat, for a VNL post from 2021. Yeah,
I hate this so much. So
it
I've had issues with this before. Like I had posted some, like, screen grabbed some highlights from Volleyball World TV of games that I had called, and I had put them up on my Instagram, and those had gotten DMCA'd. So I was like one strike away from probably getting my Instagram deactivated. The worst thing about the Volleyball Source account getting taken down, one is that the clip is from 2 years ago, which is completely insane. But the other is that there are no warnings.
None.
Like all of a sudden, you just discover that you didn't
happened
have access to the account anymore.
Yeah, and it was like, first you don't have access until this date, and I was like, okay, sure. And then once that date came around, then it was just out. So thank you very much, FIVB. Love how you guys treat people who are trying to grow this sport, trying to get more people watching. Like
It's unimaginably stupid of them to do stuff like this. First of all, if we wouldn't have to do this, we wouldn't have to post all of their clips if they weren't so bad at social media. They're absolutely the worst. They have no idea how to post clips that are actually good. When significant things happen, they do not post them. They're terrible at promoting the actual good parts of volleyball. So people like ourselves, people like our friend Christian Smith, who runs Electric Volleyball, that account's gotten DMCA'd at least twice. Like, so many people who have tried to make volleyball content have gotten shut down because all they're trying to do is help and step in for how bad the organizations are. But instead of accepting the help, the organization says, no, you trying to grow the game of volleyball? Certainly can't have that. We can't have that.
Out the door. The worst is if that we talked about soccer, if we talked about hockey, if we talked about the NFL, the NBA, any sport, you could do this. How there's so many other accounts that like take screen grabs and want to promote it. Hell, I'm pretty sure at the time we were telling people like, hey, go watch it on volleyballworld.tv, right? Imagine if they engaged the creators in this space. Imagine if they actually worked with people. So yeah, our Instagram page is down. Don't know if we're going to be able to get it back. Yeah, so if you guys want to maybe you're more than welcome to screen grab this and maybe post a little clip about this and put it on Instagram and tell the FIVB, yes, we can absolutely get three boomers in a trench coat merch. Oh, don't worry, Ronnie. We know exactly who it is. We know exactly who it is.
Yep,
I think that person is still a little bit little salty because of a certain interaction I had with him back in the day at the World Series of Beach Volleyball when ASICS wasn't too happy with his content and wanted ours. But hey, I digress. So yeah, if you've been looking for our Instagram page where like anything that we've been posting as of recent has all just been original content.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's the thing. This clip is from 2 years ago, and our like you, Everett, and our friend Joel have been absolutely killing it with the Instagram account, and all the coverage has been great for the sport. We've had awesome engagement numbers, and because the FIVB is
3 million reach a month. That's
God,
basically where we're at. That's like individual counts. 3 million people around the world were seeing our content. That was 3 more million view eyeballs on volleyball. And yeah, and like maybe you're mad that it was of volleyball world events, so you don't want media going to your events. Like we can't film them and put them on YouTube. Okay, I sort of understand, but not really. So you like the worst is though, Rob, is that if we were a fan in the stands doing the exact same things, if
it
we
would be
paid
fine.
for a seat, it would be fine, right? So yeah, if you guys have been looking for our Instagram, that's why it hasn't been down. Feel free to let the FIVB know how you feel about this, because yeah, it's been rough. But
Yeah,
Rob,
join the Discord. We might it depends on if this saga is still going on when I get back from my honeymoon. If we're still as angry as we are now, which I predict we will be, I think we might try and organize a bit of something using the people in the Discord to try and push back against this. So join the Discord, links in the description, to be a part of the community anyway, which is incredible, and where everybody recognizes how stupid of a decision this is, and we might use your help later on down the line.
it also just before one more thing, it just discourages anyone who wants to become a volleyball creator, who wants to help grow the sport, who wants to do anything, you know, within it. It just discourages them. You know, it's really too bad, because just it's frustrating. All right, let's move on, because it has been an absolutely insane week in the world of volleyball. Let's just jump right into the Champions League, because last week, oh man, were we ever in for a treat. You've already if you're watching this right now, you've already seen the name of this episode. Perugia is crumbling. But before we go into what is happening on the team that was chasing the Infinity Gauntlet, and now they're on the verge of potentially getting knocked out of the rest of the season in both their competitions, let's first and foremost talk about Halkbank versus JW. Rob, you had a field day posting those clips of your prediction, and you were absolutely right. JW went out and played super duper Mr. Clean volleyball. You could eat off of the floor with how clean they were playing, and they other than that that third set that was absolutely all Halkbank coming off the baseline serving bombs. JW was amazing in this match of the semifinal.
So clean. They were so clean. I loved their game plan. I loved how visibly different that matchup against Halkbank was compared to Lube than in the previous series, which I kind of talked about on last week's show, how many points Lube gives away for free by making all their stupid unforced errors, and how JW is very good at not doing that. Only 5 unforced attack errors as a team, 3 of them from Stefan Boyer. Their serving ratio wasn't bad. It was at least comparable to Halkbank's, and that should be a strength that Halkbank has. Tomasz Fornal was terrific, 16 for 35. Stefan Boyer was good enough, and they did a really, really good job allocating resources on their block and defense, JASTRZYBSKI, to slow down Namir Abdelaziz. This is as bad of a game as Namir has had in a long time. 10 for 29 with 6 total errors. That's like barely 100%, like 0.1 efficiency. He had a block and no aces. So JASTRZYBSKI did a fantastic job of taking Namir, to the degree that's possible, out of the game. And while Tomasz Czeski was fantastic, he was 16 for 28, which is insane. They didn't care. They didn't care about stopping Tomasz Czeski. They decided that if they can slow down Namir Abdelaziz, they have enough firepower on their team, JASTRZYBSKI, to match Czeski single-handedly, and I think that they were right. I think that was exactly the right approach, and it worked out really well. Worst they can do now is JASTRZYBSKI is play a golden set at home.
Not bad. One thing though, Rob, when you look at the stats, technically Halkbank was cleaner, right? They had better hit percentage, a better hitting efficiency. They only got blocked 5 times compared to JW getting blocked 10 times. They had the same amount of unforced errors. They passed the ball way better than JW. 60% positive, 40% perfect to 29% positive, 19% perfect. They had more blocks. Aces was pretty much the same. Actually, they had more. So when I look at these stats, I it's hard to see how JW walked away with this game, but in watching it, it was the fact that Namir, when we're seeing in the chat here that he was maybe a little bit sick, Namir just wasn't terminating in situations that he was normally being. They weren't making a lot of errors, but he just wasn't putting the ball away at the normal clip that we expect him to. What did he swing? Yeah, he only swung a 34%, and 4 of those blocks were on him of the 5.
Right. Yeah. So that's the thing, that the stats don't tell the full story, because if you take away that third set where Halkbank dominated, they were up big at midway through, and then JASTRZYBSKI put in the bench. Like, if you take that out and just think about the 3 sets that JW won, which, as you can see by the scores, were really competitive, then I think that would tell a bit of a better of a story. But I think Namir by himself, what you just said, and I think that's exactly the point. Balls we usually see him kill, he did not kill. Whatever the excuses are for that, if he was under the weather, if he was less than 100%, I know that he doesn't care. He will not give you any excuses for not performing up to his own standard, and neither should anybody else. So it came down to that. In situations, long rallies, whatever it was, balls that Namir typically kills did not get killed, and I really think that was the difference. So he's going to have to be superhuman this next leg to get this thing done in the golden set. It wouldn't be the first time we've seen him do it. So I'm never going to count Halkbank out, but this is a tall mountain to climb in this match tomorrow.
Especially because, well, there's 2 things. First and foremost, Halkbank doesn't have the supporting cast like everyone else to not be to be able to pull themselves up when Namir isn't fantastic, or at least all right. He wasn't. He was below average in this one. It's not like game 1 against Lube where Namir was pretty good. JASTRZYBSKI was out of his mind. JASTRZYBSKI was still fantastic in this one. He went 16 for 28, swung a 57%, but especially down the middle, that P2 position, they just don't have it. But also, when you look back to that Lube series, they won the first game. So they lost game 2 before going into the golden set. They need to win 4 sets tomorrow. No, on tomorrow.
It is tomorrow, yeah. And they need to win 4 sets without losing 2. And I don't know if I see that. That is a tough ask.
It is a tough ask. However, right, we know that this Halkbank team loves to run with the momentum, and they can run with the momentum. So if they have a healthy Namir and they have a healthy team, I think this is one team that can go for it. If they can start pinning balls from the baseline, Namir can rip some serves, Micah can rip some serves, JASTRZYBSKI as well. They're going to need that, and they're going to need their block to be as good, if not better, as it was last week. They had 10 blocks to JW's 5. They need to be that their serve block game has to be on point, and they need to be able to shut down Boyer and Co. Because otherwise, like all JW needs to do is go out there and win 2 sets at home. You're right. It is a tall task, but if there's one team that wants to spoil the party right now, it's going to be Halkbank.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't put it past him. I mean, we've learned the last couple of years what can happen if you bet against Namir Abdelaziz. I'll never count him out, but I do think that JASTRZYBSKI's got this in the bag. I expect him to get this done tomorrow. I know Halkbank won't go down without a fight, but just the math is so far against him. Got to win 4 sets before JW wins 2. I don't see it. I think JASTRZYBSKI's got this.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna go with that. I'm still sticking with Halkbank here. I gotta stick to my guns.
I respect that.
I still think that Halkbank can come back and win this. We've seen them win a golden set in the last round, albeit it was in a different scenario. But still, I definitely think that they can do it, because this team loves to run with emotion, and they've got some players who can. And yes, Brakaya, you're right. The supporting cast like Bruno and Yidit did have fantastic games, but they're just not good enough to get them over a team like JW, especially when JW was playing that good. They weren't putting enough stress on JW. JW is much more of a complete team than Lube is. So, and unless Zaitsev is going to go off, Lube.
And I think that's what you were saying. Like, the point that you made is good. It's not you didn't say that Halkbank's supporting cast didn't play well, because they did. It's that their supporting cast is incapable of picking up the team to carry them to a win in this situation when Namir is not Namir. That is a big difference. And
against a team like JW, which I find is much more complete than Lube this season anyways.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. This one is going to be good. This one's going down at 2:30 Eastern time tomorrow afternoon. So make sure to check that out over on Eurovolley TV or on the Eurovolley YouTube page. It'll start as public and then move to members only. But if you guys are looking for the link, I'm pretty sure Joe posted it in the Discord. So just another reason to go check out over the Discord. Moving on to the preview for Thursday's game.
Match
and
of the
the
year.
Title of this video. What is happening at Perugia? Oh my goodness, they are crumbling.
They're falling apart at the seams. Now, last week, I think both of us or one of us said something like that. This series, this Perugia versus Zaksa series, would be a franchise-defining series for Perugia. This calendar week, actually, this next like 4-day period from this second leg on Thursday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern in Perugia, to the 5th game in the Scudetto quarterfinal against Milano, which I believe is on Sunday. Those 2 matches in those 4 days is the biggest 4-day span in the history of Perugia's franchise. And all the pressure in the entire sporting world is squarely on that arena. Now, Perugia is hosting those 2 games, but I'm not even sure at this point that's going to help that much with the amount of pressure that they might be feeling.
No, and it's really interesting reading a interview with Kamil Semeniuk before the last match. And there's a few statements that I want to get to touch you first, but he also talks about how Xerxes comes into the dressing room before big matches like this and gives speeches. He's giving off very much Jerry Jones vibes from the Dallas Cowboys, where he's just trying to control everything and pick apart everything. It's funny because you and I were giving so much praise to Anastasi earlier in the season when this team was
just not getting in the way. Yeah.
And absolutely. And I think Anastasi, hey, you know what? When the car is on the freeway, when you're Max Verstappen and no one is even near you and you're just going towards the end line, things are gold. It's easy to be good in those moments. But right now it's starting to show because Perugia is just crumbling underneath this pressure. This is their worst 4-match stretch that we've seen in a long time. And, you know, they just talk about how things haven't been good since that loss in the semifinals. Before we talk about this game in particular, Semeniuk said to a Polish reporter before this match, I think that we ourselves can be our biggest opponent. If someone starts to think that he is better than his teammates, more important on the court than others. It is most important part of the season. We need to treat everyone the same as equals without looking at our CVs and achievements. We weren't great in the last games, but leading 2-1, everything is still within our hands. The most important thing is that we need to stay more unified as a team. Rob, who do we think Semeniuk is talking about here?
Oh man, it's very, very hard to say. I mean, the two, he's right. Like he went on to say, like, it's impossible to deny that this team is full of players who have individually accomplished a lot. And I would say that the 2 players who have individually accomplished the most are Simone Gianelli and Wilfredo Leon. And it would be hard to think that he's not at least alluding to those 2 guys in some sort of way. But he also went on to say that when there are so many high-profile individuals on a team, some of the responsibility comes down to the coach to make sure that everybody stays unified. And I don't think that's what's happening right now. Like you said, while their season was going well, and while Perugia was destroying people on pure talent alone, Anastasi had the easiest job in the world. But now they face a little bit of adversity. They lose in the Italian Cup semifinal. They have looked a little fragile ever since. Like the vibe around the team and the locker room just hasn't been there. Now is when he has to actually do his job, and it has not really gone that well. Like his lineup choices have been a total revolving door. The just the nervous energy around the team, I think ultimately it comes down to the coach. And if a guy like Gino Circi, who owns the team, is having this overbearing presence in the locker room, that doesn't help either. So sure, you can point to the players, like a couple of the players here and there, but I think this goes higher than that. I think this is in the realm of an organizational problem.
100%. There's a few things that I want to look at here. First and foremost is like a certain players. You know, we've heard about Plotnitsky, you know, maybe being unhappy at times, playing a B role. You know, we know that Ronnie's talked a lot about Herrera and how Herrera might get maybe a little overconfident at time. And you have a guy like Rich Licky who's won 2 Scudettos with Lube.
At least one, yeah.
Yeah, he was there for the past 2 years. Yeah, he just came this year because Anderson was there last year.
No, that's not true. This is Riklicki's second year in Perugia. But regardless,
okay, you're right.
That was the thing. The first thing when we were saying in the middle of the year, if Perugia has a weakness, the first thing that we said was the opposite position. You just brought up Riklicki and Herrera. Sure enough, like looking at the stats in this Champions League game, Riklicki was terrible, got subbed out. Herrera came in and wasn't quite good enough. So that's one area.
He was fantastic in the one set that they won. He had 8 points in set number 2, and then finished. How many did he finish with here?
14.
Finished
total.
with 14. So he had 8 sets in the second set, and then only had six sets between sets 3 and 4. That's not good enough. So I think that there's some clashing of people there. I think you have to start looking at Gianelli here, because another thing that Semeniuk was talking about in that article is that he's still trying to find that rhythm between Semeniuk and Gianelli. And to me, like, how can that be? Right? How many months are we into the season? I know that it was a rush start with the world champs, but we're talking about a guy who was the Champions League MVP, a starter on one of the best national teams in the world, and before this season and at many points in the season, a guy who I thought was the best setter in the world. How are they not just going into the gym and just figuring out that chemistry? Why aren't they figuring out the same type of stats? And also, shout out to Christian Smith of Electric Volleyball. He was messaging, being like, why aren't they just running Leon on a high ball? Why are they like insisting on running this fast outside system? You know, why aren't they just catering to what the hitter needs? Leon's probably the best hitter in the world, right? How are they not able to just give him a ball that he's able to hit? Like, it just looks like it's too fast, it's too tight, and they're worried too much about making the fancy set and staying in that system. To me, that also goes on to how is this team being game planned, right? Yeah. How are the scouts looking at Zaksa's decision making and Janusz? Because it seemed like they were having such a hard time shutting them down and slowing them down. And then finally, I also think you have to look at the support staff on this team. And, you know, we talked about this being organizational issues. Like, Leon was injured last year and they didn't even know it, right? And now you have all these guys, and you have the deepest roster in volleyball, and you guys are laboring at this point in the season. Like, how many guys can you just roll through? Every position except for the setter, you can just roll through the guys. So there just seems to be so many issues going on with Perugia right now, and it's coming to head at the worst time of the season.
It certainly is coming to a head at the worst time of the season, and I don't think Perugia right now is at the point where they're really probably able to game plan against a team like Zaksa, because I think they're so concerned on what's going on their side of the net. They are having a big time identity crisis. Their locker room seems kind of shattered, fragmented. Their on court rhythm is visibly just not good volleyball to watch, which is so confusing. Because, like you said, these are like Semeniuk and Leon in particular. How is it possible for players of that caliber to not connect with the world championship MVP, et cetera, and Simone Gianelli? Like that, it doesn't make sense that it has taken that long for them to figure all that out. Especially Leon. It's his second year now with Gianelli. There's just no excuse for not having like the basic operations of your offense like clicking like a well-oiled machine at this point in the season. So there's something else going on there. There's something more. There's this energy around Perugia that I think last year they didn't want to admit. I think they were looking for things to blame last year when they didn't get it done in the Champions League. They didn't get it done in the Scudetto final. They were able to point the finger at Leon's injury, fortunately for them, because if they had nothing to blame it on, I think that we would have blown up the franchise last year. But now this year, again, this is a franchise-altering 4 days, starting on Thursday and ending on Sunday. If they lose in one or both of those matches and are knocked out of those competitions, I don't know where the franchise possibly goes from here.
No. So, and like I think part of it, though, is that we have to give all the credit in the world to Zaksa, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the reality is that I think these issues have been present for Perugia, but they've been playing in a SuperLega that has had more of an even playing field this year, right? There's been such a gap from first to everyone else that they really truly haven't been pushed. Whereas Zaksa is clearly, you know, if they're not number one right now, then they're number two, closely behind Perugia. But right now, you have to put them at number one. If you look at how good of a match this was for Bednorz, he was absolutely unreal. 20 for 34, only one unforced error.
Incredible.
Yeah, he was incredible. 3 blocks in this one. David Smith coming up huge. 5 for 6 offensively with 4 aces. He was massive. But even if you look at a guy like Slivka, who was terrible offensively, 4 for 15, 2 errors, got blocked for 6 times. He was a minus efficiency, but everywhere else he was great, right? He got 2 aces. He got a block. He was passing out of this world, 45% positive, 30% perfect. Like, you can tell that just the Zaksa is such a good team, as they know their roles. They know how to make the team better when they're not at their best in a certain area, right? Eric Shoji was unreal. There's so much credit that has to go to Zaksa in all of this. Kaczmarek, you know, even though he wasn't great, he wasn't getting that much volume, he's still 13 for 24 and very efficient, right? No one unforced errors. So on the other side of the net from Perugia right now is a team that is just clipping at such a high clip and working so well together. And to me right now, they look like the best team in the world.
I want to go back to something that we were talking about even before the 9x9 existed, when we were covering the first Champions League that Zaksa won. When Zaksa won that Champions League, and when they went through Lube and Zenit Kazan and Trentino in the final, we said, you and I and Dan said something to the effect of, the way that this Zaksa team was built and the way that they played together 2 years ago with Tony Uti to win that Champions League might redefine how all club volleyball teams are built. And I'm going to stand by that take right now, because this Zaksa team, and similar to the Zaksa team from 2 years ago, is built so well in terms of how it was assessed with the pieces that they have put together, how they would fit together. Perugia clearly didn't think about that at all when they went and built their team. They just went out, and it's similar to Malonza on the women's side, or Piacenza, or several of the other teams that just went out because they had the resources. They got all the talent that they could get without really thinking about how that would fit together. And that hasn't bitten Perugia, because that level of talent was so ridiculous until now. Now we're seeing them play against a team that is so smart, does their homework, prepares for the matchups, is phenomenally supportive top to bottom in the organization, and has 2 Champions League wins under their belt in the last 2 years. They are the model of what a club team should be built like. And Perugia was built using a completely different approach, and now they're coming to a head. And I love to see that, because I think this should, and I hope that it will, reinforce to all the general managers and club owners around the world of club volleyball, Zaksa is the model after which to build a team, not Perugia. You need to think about exactly what your starting lineup will be for the whole season and how it fits together. And I know that Zaksa, it took them half a year to get there because of the Bednorz pickup, but that there's a huge difference in how these teams were constructed. And I love that the Zaksa way, and in my opinion, the way that is correct so far, is leading in this series. And again, their matchup preparedness, their team execution, their confidence in one another, their trust is visible when you watch them play. And honestly, this game should have been a 3-0. They got a free ball to at 25-24 in the second set to win the set, go up 2-0, that they inexplicably overpassed. So It should have been a 3-0. It shouldn't have even been that close.
Yeah. My comparison right now for this Perugia team isn't even within volleyball. I'm going to soccer or football, as our European friends. This is PSG, right? You've got Neymar, you've got Messi, you have Mbappe, you have so many of the best players in the world, and they're just not working together, right? Because this team clearly lacks that chemistry, and they're lacking a good, strong, an emotionally strong coach who can help bring them together. Hell, maybe they need to call out the New York Knicks and see if Phil Jackson's available, because that's what it feels like they need right now. Because we're getting updates in the chat to say that Anastasi will not be there next year, which is
not
very worrisome.
At all.
But it's very worrisome. Like, who else do they go to, right? How much of a revolving door has it been for coaches at Perugia over the past few seasons?
It's been
you
ridiculous.
go in with such high expectations. And I mean, we haven't even talked about the Milano game yet, where they were up 10-7 in the fifth. They shouldn't even be going to 5 sets with Milano. And now they're tied 2-2 in the series. Rob, you're right. This is the biggest 4 days possible in Perugia's entire history. Man, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't win the season. Perugia just shuts down, and there's no more Sir Safety Perugia after the season. The Block Devils are done, because this could be career ending. I said it last week, and I'll say it again. If Perugia does not win both these games, right? Because think about it, they could be out of the Scudetto playoffs, they could be out of Champions League. If they do not win both these games, they might just tear down this entire team, right? They might just end it all.
I don't know where they could go, especially because of the implications. If they lose to Milano, they're not even in Champions League next year. Think about that. Think about how ridiculous that would be. So, I mean, Thursday 2:30 Eastern, and then whatever time the Milano game is on Sunday. Let's look. Like the two biggest games of this club's existence. Yeah. It's on the 10th. Is that like Monday or Tuesday? That Milano game? That's weird. I think that's next Monday. So they're playing
because it's Easter. It's Easter Monday.
That's why. Okay. So they're not playing on Easter Sunday. Fair enough.
Fair enough. Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, Monday noon Eastern is the Perugia Milano game, and we'll talk about the Scudetto in a minute. But this is going to be completely insane. And before we move on, because we've talked about Perugia a lot already. How poetic was it that Kamil Semeniuk didn't start the match? Like you and I were talking about it last week, Everett. Like, what are they going to do with Semeniuk in his former home gym? He didn't start the match. He did start the fourth set, and he gets stuff blocked twice late in the fourth set by Marcinianic, including the one to lose the match. Like that, can Semeniuk personally even recover from that?
I mean, he was great up until that point. He was 3 for offensively. He was passing pretty good. He has 75% positive, 25% perfect. Like he did get ace that one time. But I think Semeniuk can definitely recover from it. It just seems like once again in that article that I read, he's well aware that he's not playing up to his standards, and it's been a harder year from him. And clearly he was going prepared to not play at all in that match going into it. So yeah, I definitely think he can recover from it. But it's like this Perugia. I hope they had a closed door meeting, like just players only closed door meeting, because the coaching staff isn't helping. Gino Cerci is definitely not helping a la Jerry Jones. And they need to figure it out amongst the players, because they're going to be the ones on the court doing it together. And if they can't get it done as the players, that's not going to happen. It's almost, I think that like playing at home can be an advantage, but it might also be a disadvantage in these next two games, because the pressure is just going to be so immense.
I agree. It's going to be a really fascinating study of the effect of pressure on volleyball. Like, it reminds me of my beloved United States men in the Tokyo Olympics. Like when we played that last match against Argentina that we had to win to make it out of the pool, and the absolute crushing weight of that pressure that was visible on every player on the court was so influential, and we lost the match because of it, and we didn't deserve to win. We played like trash. The pressure was overwhelming, and you could tell, like, even a non-volleyball viewer could have figured that out by watching that game. I'm fascinated to see if Perugia suffers the same thing these next couple of games, especially if they happen to not get past Zaksa on Thursday. How will they attack this Milano game? Because it's the same situation with JASTRZYBSKI and Halkbank. Perugia needs to win 4 sets before Zaksa wins 2. Even as talented as Perugia is, Zaksa is so good. It's going to be really hard to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, they are going to need, and we saw how resilient Zaksa is against Trentino, especially. Like, this is a resilient team that just won't go away. They have so many different ways to score. They play so steady. They need to be so dominant, right? Leon needs to be the best version of Leon we've ever seen. Whoever's in that P2 position, because Plotnitsky didn't play great in either of these matches. Whoever is in that P2 position needs to be better, and whoever's on the right side needs to figure it out as well. Like Herrera on Sunday was all right. He was 60 for 31, but with 4 errors and got blocked 4 times. So his efficiency was down at like 25%. They need a guy to put the ball in. There's just so much to look at here when you look at this Perugia team, and they need to be so dominant. Here's my prediction is that if they lose against Zaksa, they're going to lose against Milano.
Wow.
It's all or nothing to me.
Snowballs out of control.
Absolutely. Because if they lose, like, I think there's going to be a lot of finger pointing. There's going to be this is a team that's holding on to by threads as it is. So this is either a season ending match or a season galvanizing match.
I kind of agree with that. But again, the margins for Perugia, because of the hole they've dug themselves, are so narrow. Like Zaksa got 3 points from the first game. All they need is to win 2 sets. All Zaksa needs to win 2 sets and the series is over. Like, can Perugia beat the 2-time reigning champions in 4 sets before losing 2? Like, I'm just not sure with the just how nervous Perugia has looked and how nervous I'm expecting them to appear on Thursday. It's just going to be incredible to watch. So we'll talk about Perugia versus Milano a little bit more later on. But I agree with you. I think that the most important single game in Perugia's franchise history is Thursday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern.
Absolutely. They can't look at, I guess they have a little bit more time since they're playing on Monday. So they can't think about Milano at all. And to be honest, they shouldn't need to. Right? Milano was a fantastic team, and we've seen that they're a well put together team and they're playing really, really well right now. But on paper, they shouldn't be running with Perugia. Right? They shouldn't even be in the same heat as them. Like it shouldn't even be close. So Perugia just needs to focus solely on the game against Zaksa on Thursday. Make sure it goes, at the very least, make sure it goes to a golden set. Right? If they lose it in a golden set, then that's one thing. But if they can't even force a golden set, that's going to be an issue. And we're going to have to start putting some question marks on some of these players. And I think the first person you have to point the finger at is Leon.
I think you're going to be able to tell in the first 15 or 20 points of that first set against Zaksa on Thursday, kind of how that's going to go. If Perugia comes out and sets the tone, they cannot afford to lose that first set. They must win that first set. And sometimes this year they've had a tendency to sleepwalk in first sets. I mean, they got smoked by Milano in the first set the other day, 25-15. Like, they didn't even get off the bus. So the beginning of that first set is really going to tell me a lot.
Yeah, 100%. I think that these are going to be defining matches for Leon's legacy because 2 years ago we were giving him the excuse that he had Tragica set in him. Tragica couldn't set a high ball, right? his back was too sore. He was just too old. His hands were of stone. It wasn't going to happen. Okay, whatever. Last year, Leon was injured. You know, he wasn't 100%. This year, he has Gianelli, arguably the best setter in the world, and you have so many other guys so that you basically got some load management all throughout the season. He should be healthy. He should be getting the sets he wants. If they don't make it happen, there's the first person they need to point the finger at is Wilfredo Leon.
The all-time greats do hold themselves to that standard. And even in the sport of volleyball, which is the most team-oriented sport in the history of sports, when you are that player, when you have a case for being the best player in the world or a best player of a generation, you singularly must figure out a way to get your team over the finish line. And it is that simple. I agree with you. These are defining matches for Wilfredo Leon's legacy.
Yeah. All right, Rob, let's move on because we've spent way too much time talking about Champions League. Let's move on to the CEV Cup, where we've had just another mind-blowing thing.
What on earth is going on?
What is going on with the Italian teams right now, both men and women? They are imploding. Knack Roeselare goes up 1-0 in the CEV Cup final with a 3-0 win. Was it at home? It was in Modena. It was in Modena at the Palapinini. I don't even know how to pronounce it right now. I'm just too flustered. A 3-donger for Knack. They have an absolute stranglehold on this series. And to be honest, when I look at this stat sheet, I didn't watch this match.
Why would you? It was on the same time as Zaksa versus Perugia. Why would you watch this? But I did have it on this. I had it on the second screen and like looked over and noticed that Roeselare won the first like 25-21. I was like, that's pretty funny. But then I saw the second set score 25-23. I was like, oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then they won the third set. Like, all right, it's a shame we already awarded the Figure It Out of the Week award, well deserved by the FIVB. But otherwise, it would certainly go to Modena and Tommaso Rinaldi in particular for completely stinking it up against a Belgian team.
Well, not only did he stink it up on Wednesday against Knack, but he also stunk it up on Sunday against Piacenza. And it's funny because we started the year ragging on Rinaldi, and then there's a certain point where I was like, you know what, maybe we're a little harsh on him. He's really starting to come around, and recently he's been bad because in this game he was 5 for 16 with 4 errors, which is just not just 4 unforced errors. He got a block and he got an ace, but you can just tell that Knack went in, and it's the same thing that Piacenza did on Sunday. They gave him every single ball. They put all the pressure on him, and he couldn't handle it. He just couldn't get the job done. They're relying too much on Lugumgia. There's one thing that I will say has been a good mark for Modena in the past few games. It has been Addis Lugumgia, a guy who he has been fantastic. A guy who I have criticized to kind of disappear late in the season has really been steady. But man, Modena is on the verge of like not being in the CEV at all next year by losing their next game, and they could potentially not win the CEV Cup either, and that would be disastrous for a club that we expect to compete for Scudettos and compete for Champions League titles year in, year out.
Yeah, when Piacenza got knocked out on the other side of the bracket of the CEV Cup from them, there's absolutely no reason Modena shouldn't go on and win this tournament. And tomorrow on the road, 2:30 Eastern, of course, it's the same time as the Halkbank game, but they're going to have to go on the road to Belgium and win a golden set, force and then win a golden set to win this tournament, which they should have won easily. Like, just look at the names, look at the rosters. What sort of world are we living in that Knack Roeselare's offense as a team hit way better numbers than Modena? Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, I really don't know. Obviously, De Hulst is better than Bruno, confirmed. KŁDZIERZYN is better than Engepeth, confirmed. Honestly, at this point, Knack is going home. They're gonna I'm sure they're gonna pack that house
for sure
in Roeselare.
They're just playing with house money. Like they ever since they dropped down from Champions League, they've been punching above their weight class. They've been playing for the heck of it. They beat Piacenza, like a team that felt pressure to beat a Belgian team. And then here's the same situation with Modena. We got to give Roeselare credit. Only 2 unforced errors, blocked only twice in 3 sets. Like, that's an amazing, clean volleyball game. And they're putting pressure on a kid like Tommaso Rinaldi to execute, hang in there and serve, receive, and challenge some blockers. And he's crumbling underneath it. So I give Roeselare a ton of credit. They're playing with all the confidence. Modena's feeling the pressure. It's kind of like a miniature version of the Perugia problem that we just spent half an hour talking about.
I think I have the solution here for Modena, though. There's a clear omission. There's a clear someone. They need Tobias Crick out there. They need Crick to come out onto the court, do a little wave, hit a ball, and he can go straight to his phone so we can edit something good for TikTok. Because he's a clear omission right now on this team, and you definitely need Tobias Crick out there to get the job done for Modena. That's the only way possible.
I was going to suggest that you put Daddy Stankovic at outside hitter, because I would certainly like to do
it's
that.
still going to be the same thing. You're still going to need Crick to be able to fill in. Who are you going to put in the middle? Rinaldi? He's not in the bottom 4. Come on.
Who cares? Speaking of Daddy Stankovic, you had an incredible idea on last week's show that we should hide Daddy Stankovic randomly in one of the assets and just not talk about it and see who notices where he is. I will neither confirm nor deny that Daddy Stankovic may in fact appear in this episode, and there's a chance that actually he may have already appeared, but also he might still have yet to appear in one of the assets. So we have
look at that, ladies and gentlemen. We've got an Easter egg hunt for Easter. Let's go.
It's a new segment. We have a new segment on the show. It's called Where's Daddy? So if you find Daddy Stankovic, put it in the chat, and whoever's the first one in the comments after the video's over to put in the comments the timestamp of where Daddy Stankovic is, they get a shout out on next week's show. Where's Daddy? New segment.
Hashtag Where's Daddy? Love it.
Awesome.
Okay. All right, let's move on from the CEV right into the SuperLega playoffs, where it was an absolutely nuts weekend. Rob, I think we went over right? You and I had different predictions for the CEV Champions League, and we went 0 in the SuperLega playoffs, I think.
I think the only one that we were right about is Trentino winning the series. I think that we both said that Trentino would win the series, but we definitely and they did. We definitely said Perugia was going to win. We were wrong about that. We both said that Verona was going to win at home, and which was their best opportunity to advance. We were wrong about that. And I can't remember what we said about Piacenza Modena, but we were definitely right about Trentino, and I think we should start there because that was convincing. And after all this chaos, the only team to not have to go 5, not have to go the distance in the quarterfinals is Trentino. I mean, they got all the pieces back. They went to Monza and pretty convincingly beat him 3-0.
Yeah. I was a little disappointed by Monza in this one. I thought, getting Cachopa back was going to really galvanize this team and push them forward. But at the end of the day, they just didn't have enough to stand up to Trentino. Trentino was fantastic offensively. They were out of this world. And you really have to start looking at how underrated Riccardo Sbertoli is. And how great of a job he's done with this Trentino team. I, for one, thought last year, we talked about it a lot at the beginning of the season about how we thought that Trentino wasn't going to be that great of a team without Gianelli. We thought, Gianelli was the mastermind behind everything, but now tables have turned completely. Sbertoli has been doing a fantastic job. They had 56% in this one. There was some errors on that side, but not as much on the Monza side. 10 unforced errors for Monza, 8 blocks for Trentino. Matej Kaczynski went 11 for 21. Alessandro Micheletto went 11 for 19. Lavia, who didn't see that much volume, was still 8 for 14. They're just spreading that offense like peanut butter on toast right now. And Sbertoli is just quietly, I think KŁDZIERZY has to look at him as a realistic setter for this summer upcoming for the Italian team.
Well, for sure. It's weird that Sbertoli last summer barely saw the court at all for Italy. It was very surprising that they ran through Gianelli literally the entire summer from day one of VNL until the World Championship. And honestly, obviously, we can't argue with that because it resulted in winning the World Championship. But if Riccardo Sbertoli were on any other national team in the world, almost any other national team in the world, he would be starting. He is easily a top 10 setter on the planet, if not a little bit closer to top 5, with a couple of the other guys in that conversation aging out a little bit more. He is outstanding. He does a great job. He's a terrific backcourt defender, underrated server, underrated blocker, and runs great offense. So I give him a lot of credit. He had too many errors for Monza. Blocked 8 times in 3 sets is too many. The reception wasn't good enough. And we've been saying it. Trentino's better than Monza. So as much as we love our Canadians on Monza, they will play for 5th. And Trentino's in the quarterfinals or semifinals. Sorry.
Semifinals. And good big ups there for Trentino. They're going to get an Easter weekend off, whereas no other team is getting that. So right. I don't know. This is if Perugia loses to Milano on Monday, Trentino is my new favorite.
For sure. Yeah. The Perugia is the only team I wouldn't pick Trentino against in a 5-match series. They play too clean, consistent, just all around quality volleyball.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on. What's our next one do we want to talk about?
We should talk about Perugia Milano. Not so much about Perugia, but we should just talk about this particular match, this crazy 5-set match. First of all, it was Perugia had a great chance to win the match in 4. It was crazy that they didn't. It was crazy that they didn't get the 4th set done. It was equally crazy that they didn't get the 5th set done. They were, like you said earlier, they were up 10-7. They were up 11-8. It was tied at 13. There was a lot of weird stuff that happened. Like Herrera went underneath the net. They challenged, overturned that call. Ishikawa hurt his ankle. Poro pulled an ace out of nowhere. Perugia had a free ball that Semeniuk didn't kill. It was very, very strange. And then Agustin Loser completely clamp blocks Herrera to win the match at home. It was a roller coaster. But if you're Perugia, you're up 11-8. Terminate. You shouldn't
be in that situation.
No. Yeah. What are we doing?
Yeah. It's maybe understandable that you lose the first set the way you did. What was it? 25-15. But then they bounced back, right? And as I said, I had a bit of a night on Saturday night. If you know, I was up a little bit late. And then I see them. They go up 2-1. They were rolling in sets 2 and 3. And I was like, all right, this one, they're going to be able to close this one out. It was close. Milano pushed it. I was like, okay, they're going to be able to take it in 5. They were up. I fall asleep for like a few points and I wake up and they've lost. Like I had to go back and watch it because I was just blown away by the inconsistencies of this Perugia team. I do think you need to give some credit here to Milano, especially that man right there on the screen. Ronnie, you know, I hate to say this, Melgarejo was fantastic. He was 19 for 32. He had no one for forced errors. Only got blocked 3 times. He had 2 aces as well. Milano just served really, really, really well, right? Like super, 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 super well. Paulo Porro, 5 aces in this one.
Yeah, that was the best. It was the best match I personally have ever seen Paulo Porro play. So he gets a lot of credit. He served the ball extremely well. He had a really timely, high awareness kill in the 5th set that he turned and dumped a ball that no one was ready for, and he actually set a good offense. Like this was more the distribution of balls to the Milano wings that we've liked to see. You don't want to lean on Jean Patry too much, only not because of Patry, but because Porro can't set the ball behind him. So he gives Ishikawa and Melgarejo way more balls, and they both played really well. And you sprinkle the middle in here and there. You serve the ball well enough, and anything can happen. A great home crowd as well in Milano. They did a fantastic job there. To win both those matches at home in 5 against the best team in volleyball is a pretty huge accomplishment. But I'm curious to see if they can pull one off on the road. And again, I think this series isn't so much about Milano. It's really all about Perugia and what happens on Monday, depending on what happens in Champions League against Zaksa. But Milano gets credit. They really do. They've pushed them as hard as they can.
I'm going to agree and disagree with that because of all the cracks that Perugia is showing right now. I think how much pressure Milano puts on does matter, right? And I think how well they're able to execute does matter. Like they passed pretty well in this one. They were blocking pretty well as well. They had 8 blocks. Perugia did have 10, 9 aces. Like they played an overall pretty overall well-rounded game. So I think like Milano can't just go out there and expect to win if Perugia plays bad. But if they can put a lot of pressure on this Perugia team right now, they may be able to squeak one out. But as I said before, if Perugia loses on Thursday, I think they're just going to be too emotionally crushed to even get up. They might not even get out of bed. They might just forfeit.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that Milano has all their sights set on Monday, obviously, but Perugia's got a gigantic hurdle even before that. So going to be really interesting. But it's just this has been a fun series. These have been fun matches, and none of us expected it because of how much better Perugia should be than Milano. But Milano's played great, so I give him credit.
Yeah. All right, Rob, let's do Lube versus Verona, because this is another one that, hey, you know what? This one had the ability for Verona to go up 2-0, right? Verona won the first. They were leading in the second, and then Lube just absolutely storms back. We had called Verona to close this one out here, but man, has this ever been a fantastic series. Ivan Zaitsev is looking like he's young again. Yant is looking pretty good as well, too. This one is going to 5, and I can't believe it, but it's awesome.
It is awesome. And like we said last week, the best chance for Verona to win this series was to win this match at home. And I think you and I both agreed that if they did not win that match at home, they were probably going to lose in game 5 and Lube was going to advance. And I'm going to stand by that. I've got Lube to advance whenever that next game is. We'll look into that in a second. But it's good coaching by Blengini finally, and that's for 2 reasons. It's taken him a while to figure out they should be doing 2 things. One is relentlessly serving Nomori Keita the ball, and they're still not really doing that, but they're finding enough success with their serving strategy that I guess I'll let him off the hook. But the other thing is to pull Alex Nikolov out of the serve reception pattern. They've done that for at least 2, maybe 3 matches now. Nikolov had the best match of his career in the 3rd match. Here in match 4, he was also very, very good, and because he didn't really have to pass the ball.
8 aces.
8
aces for
is ridiculous. But he was like 20 for 23 attacking the previous game. Like the kid is completely woken up because now he doesn't have to focus on receiving serve anymore.
Yeah, 100%. That was a genius move. And Zaitsev, to his credit, has been fantastic passing. Like really, really good. 62% positive, 29% perfect. Just really anchoring that Lube serve receive. And there was a moment there where I was thinking, like, man, like we might not have Lube in Champions League next year. And now I think we will. I really do think we will. They're going to be going home. They've got this new look about them, and I really like it. It's really awesome. But it's almost like, who do you serve on Verona? Because Gagini has been bad, right? He got aced 6 times. The Rock Mozic hasn't been great. He got aced 5 times. Hell, Nomura Keita had some of the best passing numbers of the team.
Yeah,
he only got targeted 18 times. But you're right. I think that if you're going to break down, like if you go after Gagini, like you're just affecting his serve receive, right? He doesn't affect the game in as many other areas. But if you can break Nomura Keita down in serve receive, then it's going to affect his offense, right? It's going to affect him emotionally, and that takes a huge weapon out for them. But at this point, you're on the brink of pulling off the reverse sweep. You don't change anything right now, right? Maybe that's like mid-game change if things aren't going well in the next one, but you're going to be at home. Your team is rolling. Nikolov is stroking the ball so nicely. Zaitsev is looking like he's 20 years old again. And yeah, I thought that Verona was going to be able to tie this one up easily in 3 games. And now I think Lube is going to pull off the reverse sweep.
I think they probably will too. So that semi for that match 5 of the quarterfinal, that one's on Saturday. So that's going to be fun. The other 2, the Modena Piacenza game 5 and Perugia Milano game 5 are both on Monday. So Verona Lube will set the tone for the weekend. Going back to Civitanova Marche, I agree. I think that this is Lube's series now. Verona had their chances. They had a chance at home, and they didn't quite pull it off. I mean, this was a really good match. All these sets were close, but Lube was the significantly more clutch team, getting all those sets done in overtime or in the deuce set situations. Whatever it was, Lube was the experienced team, which is funny because we've been saying all year that they're not really the experienced team. But in this series, they're starting to look like the Lube that we're used to.
But they've worked everything out. Like Yant has been there before. He's won a Scudetto as a starter, right? Like, like he's been there before. DeCecco has been there before. He's won Olympic medals. He's won a Scudetto. Teniese has won an Olympic gold. Zaitsev has been there countless times before. So they're not relying on those young, unproven guys like the Botolos. They're relying on Nikolov a little bit, but only offensively and only from the baseline, not so much in serve receive. So they've taken out all of that youth and just stuffed as much as the veteranism that they can on the court.
Smart.
Very smart. Absolutely.
All right. Last but not least, we've got another opportunity for a reverse sweep in the series. Piacenza with yet another 3-dong win over Modena. This was in Piacenza, so they're going to have to go to the Palapinini and do it in game 5. But again, this is a horrible offensive outing for Modena. 36% kills as a team is brutal. Tommaso Rinaldi, 3 for 17, 3 errors. Brutal. And Lagumja was fine, not great. Ingapet, fine, not great. All Piacenza had to do is not serve a million balls out of bounds, and they didn't. Only 12 errors in 3 sets isn't bad. So when Modena's offense is just so terrible, and when Rinaldi is so invisible, like you don't even have to work that hard to beat this particular Modena team.
No. I mean, Piacenza jumped out to like an 8-1 lead in this one, and there was never a point where I thought that Modena was going to come back. A little bit maybe at the second set, but still they're going shot for shot, and eventually Piacenza pulled away. Like Modena is in crisis mode right now, and they clearly can't figure it out. Like, obviously, like the scale isn't as bad as Modena as it is for Perugia right now, but these next 5, 6, 7 days, like the next week for Modena is do or die. And I mean, I think for Modena, it's one thing, like you probably get rid of Bruno, you probably get rid of Engapeth. This second round of trying to revive what was a super team once just hasn't clearly worked. To me, you have to build around Addis Lagumja. He has been fantastic for you in and out this season, and you need to build a team that is good around him.
And they've got to get younger as well.
100%.
Bruno, Ingapet, like these guys.
To me, the first thing they needed to find moving forward is a setter, right? Obviously, Bruno, but it's just we saw it at the World Championships. He's just not quite the same. He's been doing it for a long time. Like I grew up watching Bruno. You grew up watching
Right.
Bruno. So it comes a time when you have to kind of like let it go. Same thing with Inkapeth, especially when you're not playing in that French system where everyone works together and you need to carry a bit more of a load in the SuperLega. So yeah, for first thing for me, for Modena, if they lose this game, which I'm fully expecting them to, at this point, is to go out and find a new setter.
Yeah, I mean, Father Time's undefeated. We all know that. But I also want to give Antoine Brizard some credit. Well-deserved MVP of the match. He was awesome. 4 for 4 attacking as well. Like kind of the fun, physical setter play style that we've seen from Brizard before. Didn't have any aces, but yeah, him like ripping the ball in the second contact, like taking full swings was really fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw Simone go 6 for 9 offensively. He also had 2 aces in a block. Simone has also, it looks like he's playing a little bit injured right now and will not be playing Nations League this summer, which is too bad because it would have been fantastic to see him play in Ottawa.
Really, man, that is such a shame.
Yeah,
I mean, Father Time's undefeated, but it seems like for Robert Landy, he's been struggling the last couple years.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, he's a little bit older. He hasn't played. If he had been playing national teams all these years, it would
he'd be completely broken down. So at least we still get to see him at his top form at age 35 or whatever he is.
Yeah. All right, Rob. Let's do a quick prediction here. Milano versus Perugia. Who are you taking?
I think I've got Perugia, and I think I've got him regardless of what happens on Thursday. I think that the motivation for the Scudetto is actually more significant, not because of what it means to win the Scudetto, but of what it would mean if they fail to win this game. Like if you lose in the Champions League semifinal, that's like at least that's like an honorable loss of sorts. You lose to Zaksa, like you could maybe get over that. But to lose as the number 1 seed, to go undefeated in the Italian regular season and to lose in the first round, and then to not even play Champions League the following year, I think is way more. Yeah, exactly. I think that's way more significant. And I think regardless, especially because Perugia will have more days after that Thursday match than I thought, that being that Monday game, I do think Perugia gets that one done and advances.
Yeah, I agree, because I think that the potential of not playing Champions League next year,
that is
kills
a
it.
Big deal. Big deal.
Leon leaves, Semeniuk leaves, like Gianelli leaves, like
yeah,
that it just can't happen.
Yeah, whole franchise is burned to the ground. If they're not in Champions League last year, there's absolutely no point in keeping any of those high profile guys on the roster. So I think we're both on the same page about Lube probably beating Verona at home on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Forza Lube in this one for sure.
How about Modena and Piacenza at Modena Monday noon Eastern? Who's your pick there?
Oh, apparently playing at home for Modena doesn't mean anything because we're losing to Belgian teams at home. So yeah, I'm going Piacenza in this one. I really do. Modena won both games in 5. Piacenza has won both games in 3. I think that this one is going to be a bit more of a bloodbath, but ultimately I think it's going to go Piacenza's way. Absolutely.
I hope that Piacenza wins because they would put themselves maybe in position to play Champions League next year, depending on how the semifinals go, and I would kind of like to see that. So I'll pick Piacenza as well. I think they've got a lot of momentum right now. And worth pointing out, they beat Modena just now 3-0, and Yuri Romano was terrible. So like, even if he's average and you still get the same amount out of Lucarelli and Leal and Simone, that they should take care of Modena, no problem.
Also, one of the benefits for Piacenza losing last round to Roeselare instead of now is that they get all of this week to prepare for Modena, whereas Modena has to play tomorrow.
4D chess.
Yeah, absolutely. They were thinking ahead.
Of course they were when they lost to a Belgian team in a golden set. Of course they were.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we shift our focus to the women's game for a little while?
100%, because, we are getting down to the nitty gritty here, and whoo-wee, 3 teams from Istanbul in the CEV semifinals. So tomorrow we have match 1 of the women's game. Novara takes on Exacerbation at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Not as excited for this one. I think there's a clear David and Goliath scenario here right now.
I agree. I think we did a pretty good job on last week's show of previewing both of these women's semifinals. So go check out last week's show because we don't have all the time in the world right now. But I agree with what we both said last week. Eczacıbaşı and Novara are actually kind of similar, but Eczacıbaşı player for player is just better. They play a similar style, but Eczacıbaşı is better in every area, and I think they'll win no problem.
Yep, absolutely. And then in the big one that everyone is going to be watching on Thursday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern time, Vakıfbank against Fenerbahçe, the Battle of Istanbul, the defending champs against the team that has dominated them this year. Hoo-wee, this is going to be good. I think I've got my eyes on Fenerbahçe right now. I really, really do.
Yeah, I know you do, and I've still got Vakıfbank. I think we'll both stand by our picks from last week, and this is as excited as I've been for a women's series in a very, very long time. I think this is going to be fireworks. I think it could be hugely significant on the future of women's volleyball if this particular Fenerbahçe play style continues to have success at this level. And I mean, it's all the big names you could ask for. It could be how well will Gabi meet the moment? How well will Paula Egonu meet the moment? Will Arina Fedorov-Tseva cement herself as a top outside in the world? Will Melissa Vargas do the same at the opposite position? Like, it's a low-key, really good setter battle between Makris and Cansu Özbay. Like, this is awesome. This is going to be a great game, and then the fans in Istanbul will be absolutely bananas. So I'm really excited to watch this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it's a really good chance for Cansu Özbay to solidify herself as a top tier setter, right? Makris, she's Brazilian. She's done it before. She's done it consistently. We know who she is, right? Now it's time to see if Vakıfbank is going to let her off the hook.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, going to be a great series, like you said, at 12:30 Thursday. Which one is that at? I think that is at Vakıfbank's place, and then Fener's place on the following week. Yeah, that's right, because Fenerbahçe is actually the higher seed, if you can believe it. So that's going to be awesome. Really looking forward to it. I sure hope we get somebody good on the call for those games.
Louis, please. Louis.
Louis got Zaksa versus Perugia, thank God. But that's the same.
Yeah,
that's the same day as this one. So we might get some pretty bad luck on commentators. Whatever. We'll make do because the game will be too good anyway. Speaking of women's volleyball, let's take a look at the Lega Volley Femminile. One more game left to go. The big result from match day 25 is Pinerolo. What is going on with this team?
Pinerolo, let's go.
Out of nowhere has climbed out of relegation position with a big 3-point, 3-1 win over Castelmaggiore, who's a playoff team right now. And they sit 2 points clear. Let's look at the standings. 2 points clear of Perugia for that second relegation spot. We already know Macerata's gone. We talked about that last week. But Perugia having just lost, let's see, who did they just lose to? It was somebody good, I remember.
Chieri.
Yeah, they lost to Chieri. Chieri's good. Chieri's in fourth. So now Pinerolo looks awfully good. And the reason why is because with one more game left in the season, guess who Perugia has to play? They have to play Conegliano. So even though Conegliano has the 1 seed clinch, they'll probably roll out the bench. I expect them to beat Perugia, and Perugia needs 3 points to even have a chance. So it's looking like Pinerolo may have somehow miraculously rescued their season in the last 2 or 3 games. They have won 3 in a row. It's actually kind of amazing.
It actually is kind of amazing, and a big ups there for Pinerolo to really pull themselves out of the depths. So huge up for Pinerolo. I saw this one come across the scores, and I was a little surprised, but that's huge, especially because Castelmaggiore, they're in the playoffs. They know that, but you've got Busto who's right behind them. You've got Bergamo who's only a game away. There's still some wins and losses. And I think if you're Castelmaggiore, you want to play Monza way more than you want to play Scandicci in all of this.
And I think that's the thing to look at because as we keep looking at the standings here, the playoff field is set. We know who the 8 teams are. Bergamo's 5 points clear of Firenze between 8 and 9. So Bergamo's in, Firenze's out. We know that. Bergamo could maybe catch. Actually, no, they can't catch Castelmaggiore on it would be on set ratio tiebreaker. They could overtake Busto, however. So this weekend, Bergamo and Castelmaggiore play head to head. That could be pretty spicy. Busto's got Malonza, which could potentially, depending on how things shakes out, that could maybe be a first round playoffs preview. That's pretty cool. Chieri and Novara are locked in at 4 and 5. We know that they're going to play each other. Conegliano's 1 for sure. I think that Scandici is 2 for sure. Ooh, let's see about that. Scandici's got Firenze this weekend. Malonza's got Busto. If Malonza gets 3 points, Scandici gets 0, it would come down to set tiebreaker. So that would be really interesting. But we know the 8 teams. I'm curious if Conegliano plays the bench, if somebody like Novara plays the bench, given where they're at in Champions League, and like who wins those 6, 7, 8 games, just try and get the optimal matchups in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if Busto loses to Milano and Bergamo beats Casamaggiore, then
Busto's 8. Yeah,
will be 8th. So still a lot to figure out this weekend in the Lega Volley Femminile, and none of those teams, other than Novara, are going to be playing Champions League.
That's a great point, which is ridiculous, sitting 5th in the league right now and top 4 in all of Europe. So still very much Conegliano's league to lose. I'm excited to see them play perhaps Scandici in the finals. I think that series would be pretty good. But as for matches this weekend that have a lot of drama, I just don't really see it as far as like last week's of the regular season go. Just because Perugia trying to not get relegated, having to play the best team in the league, I don't really see that. Maybe Pinerolo takes a point from Chieri because Chieri doesn't have much to play for. It's weird. It's always funny to see like teams' priorities in this last game based on where they're at in the standings.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's move on now to the Plus Liga, where we are getting set for the playoffs. And whoo-wee, this is what I'm going to be excited for, especially when you look at that second bracket there, Zaksa against Warszawa. I think you have to look at that one. But ultimately, Plus Liga volleyball heading into the playoffs right now, that's massive.
Yeah, and so I was looking into the format of these quarterfinal series in Poland. They are best of 5 this year, which is great. But they're really condensing them as far as timing goes, which certainly fits with what we've seen in the Plus Liga all year. The first 2 matches of each series are going to be played on back-to-back days. I don't know if I've ever really seen that before. Even in the NBA and like a best of 7 series, when they play in the same spot for 2 days in a row, they don't play back-to-back days. So yeah, check it out. So like they play 2-2-1. Like the higher seed hosts the first 2 games, the lower seed hosts games 3 and 4, and then it goes back to the higher seed for game 5 if necessary. So like the first game is on Thursday, Zawiercie versus Olsztyn, but then they're playing again on Friday. So the first 2 games of each series are back-to-back nights, and then they get a couple days off for travel. They're really trying to squeeze these in, which is classic Plus Liga. But you got the matchups on the screen there. Number 1, Resovia versus number 8, Stalnissa. Number 4, Zaksa versus number 5, Warszawa. Number 3, JASTRZYBSKI versus number 6, Gdansk. And number 4, Zawiercie versus number 7, Olsztyn. Zaksa versus Warszawa is the one I'm most excited for, especially because Warszawa just snapped their 13-match win streak. 5-set loss to Gdansk the other day. And Zaksa, like kind of predicted, rolled out the bench against JASTRZYBSKI and beat them anyway to grab the 4 seed. Finally, Everett, we've been asking about it all year. Everybody in the Poland channel and the Discord has been begging for them to give Eric Shoji an MVP award, and they did. Last game of the regular season, our friend of the program, our lovely American libero, gets an MVP award, so congrats to him.
Speaking of Americans doing well, they did announce the All-Stars for the regular season in the Plus Liga as well. Taylor Averill on the first team, TJ DeFalco on the first team, Luke Perry, Australian libero, on the first team, rounding it out. Stefan Boyer on the right side, Uros Kovacevic on the left side, Piotr Nowakowski in the middle, Fabian Drizga as the setter. That's questionable. That's a bit of nepotism for sure. The second team, Miguel Tavares as the setter, Slivka and Fornal are the 2 outsides, Kokonovsky and Patishki in the middle, Bolads on the right side, and then Hariluk.
Havriluk, he's actually really good. Yeah, those are good picks. I mean, the Plus League is stacked. It is really cool to see both Averill and DeFalco on kind of the first team for the year. So congrats to those guys. Looking forward to seeing them in the playoffs.
Yeah, it should be a good one. I mean, I think other than that Zaksa versus Warszawa series, Warszawa just lost their 13-game win series with a loss to Gdansk this past week. I think that this is going to be I think, maybe JW versus Gdansk. But actually, no. Like, I think
that
looking at
Zawiercie versus Olsztyn could be a little bit spicy. I'm not
You're
super
not
I'm
wrong.
not super convinced by Zawiercie. I don't like David Konarski. I don't like how many balls they give Kovacevic, and I like Olsztyn even without Josh Tuaninga. So I've got my eye on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Another big thing coming out of the Plus Liga is that after this season, Mariusz Vlažve has announced his retirement.
Oh,
and that
what
he
a
will be-
legend.
What a legend. Will stand for a moment of applause for a man who brought Poland a world championship back in 2014. He led Skra all those years, but he's not done with volleyball. It looks like he's going to continue working with the Gdansk club.
Awesome. Yeah, congrats to Vlažve. Incredible career that guy's had.
Yeah. All right. Let's move in because it's getting to be kind of a long show now. We're coming up on almost an hour and a half. So let's move on to the Bundesliga playoffs. 2 series have been decided, or
Actually,
maybe 3 now.
Yeah, Duren won earlier today.
Okay, so Duren won early today over Hersching. Goodbye, La Visite. Bye-bye, Hersching. Thanks for participating. Thank you for participating as well to the Netzhoppers and Unterhaching. They are also done as Lüneburg takes down the Netzhoppers. Unterhaching loses to Berlin. So we're going to have Duren versus Berlin in the one semifinal, and the other one we're going to wait to see who wins the Gießen versus Friedrichshafen series. Is Gießen won in 5? Friedrichshafen was able to even the series back up. But Rob, there's a bit of drama heading into Game 3.
Yes. So something that I like to call the Draymond Green rule, because whenever Draymond Green plays in an NBA playoff series, when he accrues a certain number of technical fouls, he gets suspended for a game, right? And we don't really see that in the NFL so much, or in other American sports, but we see it in basketball all the time. If you get a certain number of technical fouls, they carry over a certain span, you get suspended just automatically. Turns out there's the exact same thing in the Bundesliga, and I had never heard of this because it hasn't really come up, especially not to a notable player. But sure enough, Dejan Vincic, the starting setter, the Slovenian captain and the Friedrichshafen lead guy at the setter position, got himself another red card against Gießen in Game 2. And because of how many he had gotten that throughout the course of the season, Dejan Vincic is suspended for Game 3. And that is extremely spicy because I commentated a bunch of Friedrichshafen's Champions League games. They do not have a second setter. I don't even know who it is. It's some really young German guy, I'm pretty sure, who's just going to be like think about Paulo Porro in his Modena days in a shirt that's 2 sizes too big for him. Friedrichshafen without their starting setter is on legitimate upset alert against Gießen this 3rd game. That is a huge mistake by Vincic, their captain, for losing his cool and getting too many red cards.
Wasn't it a bit of an interesting scenario, though?
So I watched the play. It's on Bounce House's Instagram. Like, go check it out. It's got like the first tile is talking about Vincic, and then if you swipe over, it shows the 2 plays. One where he got yellow carded because he was complaining too much about a block touch, and then the second one where he got red carded because there was a block that was in by a lot, and he's like just showboating through the net and talking to the ref. And I don't speak German. I couldn't understand what he was saying. I couldn't read the caption, but I know that there are people also in the Discord talking about that may or may not have really been red card worthy. But nonetheless, if you know the rules and if you know that if you get a red card, you're out for your team's next game, you got to do whatever you there's no excuse for missing this next game. You just can't put yourself in that spot.
Friedrichshafen's backup setter is Mateusz Biernat.
Polish guy.
Yeah, Polish guy who was backup for Ravena next year. May have played a little bit, and then other than that has just played in played a little bit in the Czech Republic, and also played Division 2 in Poland the year before for Wrocław. So that is sketchy, especially against a Gießen team that they've already lost a match to. So, man, we could be seeing Gießen versus Lüneburg in the final, and imagine if this Lüneburg team makes the final. Yeah, man, the out-of-system content that we're going to get from that would be amazing. I know
that the out-of-system boys are obviously rooting for Gießen to win that game because they obviously have a better chance against them in the semis. But Lüneburg has drawn themselves a pretty nice little path here in the bracket, and Vincic has really shot himself and Friedrichshafen in the foot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So very interesting.
They do have home court advantage, but still,
They do.
That will be interesting. All right, moving from Germany to France, we had the French Cup finals this weekend. Not much drama here. Toulouse dominated over Nice. Nice isn't even a playoff team. That's the end of their season, losing in the French Cup finals. Toulouse, they have been the cream of the crop in France all season long. They did not so bad in the Champions League as well, making it to the playoffs, just losing out to Friedrichshafen. I'm sure this might be a little. Wasn't it Toulouse who got injured? The setter got injured.
Yeah, their starting setter got injured in Champions League. That certainly didn't help. But yeah, I mean, they were going to win the French Cup. They obviously were going to beat like the 12th ranked team in the league or whatever Nice is. They were obviously going to beat them in the French Cup. So good for them getting some hardware. The actual playoffs start in France this week, Saturday. They start Saturday night. So it's weird that they play the cup so late, like the cup final being right before the playoff starts.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I see. We also saw the Greek Cup finals this past weekend as well too. So they're not the only ones. Just real quickly going over these playoff series. Toulouse is going to be taking on the defending champs Montpellier, who were able to squeeze themselves back into fifth after starting 0-5 on the season. Narbonne is going to be taking on Tourcoing. Tourcoing is filled with Jay Blankenau, Riley Barnes, and Lucas Van Berkel. Set is where we've seen. Derek Epp this season. Taking on Nantes, and then a battle of the Americans in that final quarterfinal down there. Or actually, I think Nantes also has Kyle Russell as well too, which is important to note. But then you've got Pat Gassman playing for Chaumont, taking on Quinn Isaacson and Kyle Ensing for Saint-Nazaire in the other quarterfinals. So best of 3 games for the French. For the French playoffs. Looks like they're playing Sunday or Saturday.
I think it's Saturday, Monday, and then maybe a couple days after that for game
Saturday,
3.
Monday, Friday. Monday, Friday if they need a game number 3.
Yeah, shout outs to Chaumont. They've got Pat Gassman, also Mike Marshman, a big Team LVC guy from the VLA. And speaking of Team LVC, to wrap up a big weekend for me and the VLA, we were up there in Albany, home court advantage for Team LVC. They go in as the 1 seed and they win the East Division Cup. So good for them. They were definitely the best team there. But kind of the big storyline from the weekend is this Kentucky Unicorns team, brand new team. It's awesome. They go in and beat 2 Tier 1 teams in the bracket. They beat the Northeast Force on Saturday night. They beat the Boston Bounce on Sunday morning, and they take a set from Team LVC in the finals. Like they have really put themselves on the map in like their first couple months of VLA existence. So shout outs to the Unicorns, but it is Team LVC who kind of puts themselves in the same tier as the Icemen in the Central and the Rising Tide in the West, who won their respective Division Cup tournaments. And I think the VLA right now, those are the 3 main contenders in Tier 1. And so there was kind of some pressure on LVC to defend home court and keep themselves in that conversation with the other couple elite teams in the other 2 divisions. So LVC did that. Good for them. There's a Central Division regular season event in like 2 weekends for the VLA in Louisville, but I'll be on my honeymoon, so not my problem.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I'll have to say about the Lexington Unicorns, sorry. They are from Lexington, Kentucky. Their logo needs a little bit of work. It's a little much.
It is.
Like with the unicorn standing on the rocks with the galaxy behind them.
So the unicorn is standing on whiskey barrels. Apparently, like a unicorn is a bourbon term, like with Kentucky being such a big bourbon spot. Like a unicorn bourbon or a unicorn of whiskey is like one that's really hard to get your hands on.
Yeah,
or
Kentucky
a really
bourbon.
rare one.
That's okay. That's as a bartender, that makes much more sense. Needs a little bit of work though.
It's funny. It's funny to see Tier 2 teams pop up and they kind of take some of them swing for the fences in regards to branding.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, which is great. Then they
fantastic logo. Niagara Frontier, that is really, really good. River City Flow is great. Boston Bounce, it's pretty good, but yeah, the unicorns, they need a little bit of work on their logo there. Pass that on for me to them if you will.
I can do that. Also, I think we just lost connection for about 5 seconds, but I believe we fixed it. So hopefully we're all good. We're just about to wrap up the show anyway. But
yeah. All right. Before we wrap it up, Rob, congratulations preemptively on this weekend. Have a good one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Enjoy your your honeymoon down south. We are going to have no episode next week as Rob will be gone. So make sure to tune in. We might have to have an extra long episode in 2 weeks because Champions League will be on to the finals. The first playoffs will be done. Lega Volley, like there's so much is going to happen over the next little bit when you're gone. You're picking the really worst time for volleyball here, Rob. Like, why couldn't you have this in the fall or something?
Yeah,
like
my bad.
But congratulations, best of luck. I hope you enjoy it, and also make sure to let the FIVB know about the award that they just won this week.
Yeah, go back to the beginning of the episode if you missed our rant about why the FIVB is so stupid for taking down the Volleyball's first Instagram. Also, reminder of our new segment that is Where's Daddy? So I can confirm that Daddy Stankovic did appear at some point during this episode, and if you find him, put in the comments, not in the live chat, but put in the comments of the video after the stream is over the timestamp of where he showed up, and the first person to do that will get a shout out on the next show for finding Daddy Stankovic. So that's our new segment. I really like this.
I might go solo next week. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. The problem is, Rob and I were talking about is that I'm not great when I go solo.
Dude,
so maybe I'll just do like I'll go live at the same time and we just do kind of a Q&A. Like you guys can come in the chat, ask some questions. I'll answer some things and maybe we can or if anyone wants to join me and we could have a guest person come on. I think that would be fun too.
Well,
we can't replace Rob, but like a tier 2 version of Rob.
I like that. Well, you're welcome to try and figure it out. I know that it is a interesting week to be missing as far as the 9x9 goes, but you guys will have plenty of fun watching volleyball in the Discord and all that. And I'll be tuning in here and there when there's volleyball to watch. I will want to watch it just as a fan for entertainment, not just for
you just might be on a beach
sake.
Instead of in front of your guitar.
Yeah.
So yeah, if there's an NVA version of Rob out there, just maybe let me know when we can come.
Yeah, the last the suggestion to get Ronnie Cuban Spike on the show, I'm going to go ahead and shut that one down right now.
Yeah, there's no way. He was
that episode. That episode would be 4 hours long. I can't even imagine.
Oh, Ronnie, we love you, buddy.
All right. I love you all, people. I'm going to go get married on Friday and be somewhere sunny and cool next week. So no show. Everett, have fun without me. You guys do whatever you want. I'll see you in the Discord. But definitely all eyes on these great matches this week. Champions League is going to be nuts. Milano versus Perugia is going to be nuts. I'm excited to be sitting somewhere warm and just kind of following along. And if Perugia's franchise is going to burn to the ground, it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Aussie Tragic says, get Gage.
Oh, that would actually be incredible.
If the timing could work out, yeah, maybe. But Key would be good too. Maybe we'll reach out to Key.
Everett can do some scouting and some recruiting on a guest 9x9 host for next week.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks. Have a good one, Rob. Congratulations preemptively.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Enjoy the next great stretch of volleyball.
Peace.